So the US didn't just sell us a fighter jet, they sold us a 50-year leash. And the guy holding it keeps jerking the chain every time Canada makes an independent decision.
Canada is stuck in a ridiculous position. We've already paid for the American F-35s, but the US keeps threatening our alliances, meddling in our defense, and treating us like we're a subcontractor instead of a sovereign country.
But the good news? Well, Sweden just walked in with the perfect escape plan. They brought the king, they brought 10,000 jobs, and they dropped a polite diplomatic grenade right in the US ambassador's lap.
The Gripen isn't just a fighter jet, it's a way for Canada to finally step out of Washington's shadow and build something of our own, here, with our workers, our industry, our sovereignty.
Now, here's the part the American outrage industrial complex keeps pretending not to understand. Canada is only locked in the first 16 F-35s. Those ones are already in production and we're getting them whether we like it or not.
But the remaining 72 jets? Those are under review, because between the tariffs, the threats, and the whole Canada is the 51st state mess, the Carney government finally took a step back and said, wait, are we sure this relationship is healthy? And honestly, no, we're not sure at all.
And then Melanie Joly hits the mic with the diplomatic equivalent of a frying pan to the forehead. Joly said, I don't believe we've had enough jobs or industrial benefits out of the F-35 contract. Canadians expect more.
In other words, we paid for premium champagne and got a lukewarm box of wine.
Canada's aerospace sector was supposed to get billions in offset work. But the F-35 program isn't a you buy 88 jets, we give you 88 jets worth of jobs model. It's a you get to compete for scraps with 10 other countries model.
So Joly spelled it out. Canada didn't get enough jobs, didn't get enough industrial benefits, and she's clearly done pretending that's acceptable. Man, I love Melanie Joly.
Then enter Sweden, and they did not come to play. They saw the gap, smelled the opportunity, and rolled in like, oh, Canada, we can fix this.
They sent the King and Queen of Sweden to Ottawa. Royalty, actual royalty, to pitch a jet.
Sweden's deputy prime minister says, and this is a real quote, we brought in the heavy artillery, the King and Queen. That's the most Swedish power move I've ever seen.
But before we go any further, we want to hear from you. Which jet should Canada choose? The F-35 or the Gripen? Tell us in the comments, because this entire debate gets better when Canadians weigh in.
All right, now, back to Bush, because she did not stop there.
She was asked about the U.S. ambassador warning that Canada's choice could affect NORAD, and she said, we do not threaten our way into a deal. A country that caves to that kind of pressure shows weakness, which is the most polite Swedish way of saying, Canada, the U.S. is acting like a bad friend.
Drop the mic, because that one line tells you everything about the difference between the two offers. And look, if you've seen our other videos about the U.S. ambassador to Canada, you already know what we think about Mr. Hoekstra. We've got those linked below if you want to see the full saga.
So let's lay this out clearly. Option A, the U.S. sales pitch, buy the F-35s or bad things might happen in NORAD. Option B, the Swedish sales pitch. We build Gripens in Canada, create 10,000 jobs, give you full tech transfer, and we brought the king!
The other sounds like dealing with a schoolyard bully who steals your lunch and then lectures you about loyalty.
So let's talk about this for a moment. Let's talk about the big, messy optics. Trump greets MBS like he's a superfan meeting Taylor Swift for the first time. He's all smiles, all cameras, all, hey buddy, remember when you made that guy disappear? No sweat.
And while he's at it, he floats the idea of giving Saudi Arabia F-35s. You know, the same aircraft Canada is now on the hook for up to $33 billion just to buy, and about $74 billion once you add the lifetime costs.
So Canada's in this very awkward position. We're locked into a fighter jet made by a country that keeps sending wildly mixed signals about alliances, ethics, and who they'll sell deadly weapons to.
It's like being stuck in a friend group where your bestie keeps cozying up to every authoritarian creep at the party, and somehow you're still the one paying for Uber rides home.
And while Trump is sitting in the Oval Office, he's acting like the Crown Prince was his old college roommate. I swear, Trump was laughing like a schoolgirl with a crush on the quarterback.
And why this sudden giddiness? Because MBS dangled a brand new promise. $1 trillion in investment in the United States.
1 trillion from a regime that can't even get through a press conference without denying human rights abuses. It's theater, it's fantasy, and it's not happening. This is just two men figuring out how to line their own pockets while everyone else picks up the tab.
Then came the gifts: F-35s, advanced U.S. chips, nuclear technology, critical minerals cooperation. Trump basically opened the American military hardware catalog and said, "Pick your favorites. Daddy's buying."
And who gets screwed? American workers and Canadians and Canadian allies, and anyone who thinks democracy is worth more than a flashy business forum at the Ritz.
And that's the partner Canada is expected to tie itself to for the next 50 years? A guy handing out stealth jets to authoritarian friends because his family keeps landing real estate deals in Riyadh. Trump gets the cash, America gets, well, absolutely wrecked.
And look, Canada sees what's happening around the world. You choose your partners carefully when things get rough. And Sweden, they didn't mince words this week. Their deputy prime minister literally said, "Sweden is choosing Canada."
And honestly, we'd like to choose Sweden too. I mean, when a partner says that out loud, directly, publicly, and possibly right to Prime Minister Carney's face, you pay attention.
Because here's the truth nobody in Washington wants to acknowledge. Canada, we already feel more aligned with Europe. We have shared values, shared diplomacy, shared respect for institutions, and zero institution threats or late-night tariff roulette.
Exactly. This isn't just fighter jets. This is Canada's foot in the door to Europe's defense and industrial ecosystem, a partnership with countries who actually share our worldview.
Sweden stepped forward with open arms, and they said, "We choose Canada." And for once, Canada has the chance to say, "Right back at you, babe."
It's stability, it's sovereignty, and honestly, it's the healthiest relationship option we have seen all year.
So now we're here. Canada has a once-in-a-lifetime generational opportunity to diversify its fighter fleet and reclaim full military independence.
We can lock ourselves into the F-35s for the next 50 years, or we can take Sweden's Made in Canada Gripen offer and actually build something here instead of buying it from the political dumpster fire down south.
And to understand why this choice matters so much, let's talk about the numbers.
The F-35 costs around $40,000 per hour to fly. $40,000 per hour. Every time you send it up, you could have bought someone a new Honda Civic and a winter tire package.
That number comes straight from the U.S. Defense Reporting and Watchdogs. The jet is expensive to operate because every part of it is coated in fragile stealth materials that don't like being touched, breathed on, or looked at too aggressively.
And the Gripen? Well, high single-digit thousands per hour, somewhere between 6 and 10 grand. A bargain, really. It's basically the Costco rotisserie chicken of fighter jets. Dependable, affordable, and somehow better than its price should allow.
Over 30 to 50 years, that difference becomes volcanic. Running F-35s is like heating your house by burning $20 bills. The Gripens, they sip fuel slowly, like they're splitting the check.
And here's the kicker. Canada won't even get the full F-35 capability for years. The Block 4 upgrades, the ones we're depending on, are delayed till at least 2031 or 2033. So we're paying flagship iPhone prices for a version that still freezes.
And the price tag isn't even the worst part. The F-35 doesn't just cost money, it costs sovereignty, and it's a big one.
Because the US controls the jet software, mission data files, sensor packages, and upgrades. If Canada wants to update or modify anything, we need American permission.
And in some cases, we literally have to send the jets to St. Louis for software updates.
St. Louis, the place that brought us toasted ravioli, which, by the way, is just ravioli someone deep fried during a dare.
The point is, the F-35 is a jet with a leash. Washington holds the leash, and the leash is very short.
The Gripen, by comparison, is like, here's the jet, here's the code, here's the manual, build it in Canada, upgrade it in Canada, modify it in Canada. We trust you.
It's the difference between renting and owning. The F-35 is a condo with a cranky condo board president. You know the type, the one who fines you $50 for hanging a wreath. Well, the Gripen is a house with a yard, a shed, and nobody deciding whether your dog is allowed to live there.
Now, let's talk about jobs, because this is where things get spicy. The F-35 program gives Canada potential work, maybe work. You can compete for contracts work.
And that's why Melanie Joly said Canada hasn't gotten enough from the deal, because with the F-35's contract, we aren't guaranteed anything.
And the Gripen? 10,000 jobs, guaranteed. A made-in-Canada factory, a final assembly here, parts here, aerospace revival here.
Imagine that! Building the jet in Canadian factories instead of shipping $30 billion to Texas and praying they don't annex us again.
Speaking of that, before we do dive deeper, we need to settle a real national debate. The one Canadians are actually fighting about.
No, it's not about annexation threats, don't worry. It's not even about tariffs or the Prime Minister getting booed at the Grey Cup.
We're talking about how do you pronounce Gripen?
Because some Canadians say Gripen. French Canadians say Gripen. I've heard some Americans say Gripen, which feels appropriate. And Dave and I, we say Gripen.
Because I've been to Sweden, and I think this is how they would say it from my experience in Stockholm with a long I. Gripen. Besides, that's straight from the Swedish pronunciation guides.
Now, I know we have some Swedish viewers watching, so perhaps you can set the record straight in the comments and let us know. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Gripen, 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 or Gripen.
Whew, that was a lot, and I'm glad that I got that off of my chest.
Okay, fine. For the rest of the video, we'll say Gripen, or we'll try. Because that's just the way we roll.
Exactly. Anyway, let's move on and talk about the stuff Lockheed Martin wishes we stop bringing up.
Number 1, the TR-3 computer upgrade. Delayed. Delayed again. Delayed some more. Delayed so many times, the US literally withheld part of Lockheed's payment until they fix it.
Number 2, the stealth coating. The thing that the jet is famous for. Has corrosion issues and maintenance teams report it wears out faster than expected.
Number 3, the engine upgrade. AETP. That was supposed to boost cooling and range by 25%. Cancelled.
Now, former F-14 RIO Ward Carroll, who's been covering the F-35 for years, has said repeatedly, this jet is powerful, but it's not ready for what politicians claim it can do.
Now, here's another part I love. One of our viewers, clearly ex-military or ex-procurement, left a brilliant comment yesterday, and we're going to summarize it because it was longer than the Constitution.
His argument was, Canada doesn't need 0 F-35s, we need the right number of them.
So step 1, keep the first 16. They're already paid for. Use them for NATO missions and joint operations and situations where stealth actually matters.
Step 2, cancel the remaining 72. Instead, buy Gripen EF as Canada's primary sovereignty and Arctic patrol fighter. Step 3, add a small fleet of Global Eye airborne early warning jets on Canadian Bombardier airframes made in Canada.
The result? Canada gets a sovereign jet built in Canada, 10,000 jobs, full tech transfer, Arctic patrol capability, and a NATO-capable stealth fleet for international missions.
Now that's not a compromise, that's a real defense strategy. Listen, at some point Canada has to stop pretending that this is a stealth versus non-stealth argument. It's not.
It's about dependence versus independence. It's about whether Canada wants to own its defense future or rent it from a country that's been threatening to annex us for 12 months straight.
Sweden arrived with a respectful offer, a partnership, royalties, and jobs. America arrived with a threat and a bill.
So what do you think? Should Canada lock itself into all 88 F-35s and cross our fingers that US politics stays sane?
Or should we keep the first 16, cancel the rest, and tell Sweden, Gripen, 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 whatever, just build them here?
Drop your thoughts in the comments below because we read every single one, even the ones arguing about Swedish vowels.
And if you want merch, Substack, mugs, and our whole Canadian First series, all the links are below.
Plus, if you missed yesterday's Gripen deep dive, go watch that next. It pairs beautifully with this one. Just like IKEA and the Allen key.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Canada is not backing down.
And the world is watching too, especially in Sweden. Hey, Sweden.
Tack Sweden.